Welcome to Key West, Florida, where just 90 miles away lies Havana, Cuba. 50 years ago, Fidel Castro took power.
Cuba's Fidel Castro emerged triumphant after 2 years of guerrilla warfare against the Batista regime.
And for 50 years, the U.S. has launched invasions, assassination attempts, and an economic blockade that's yet to topple the communist state.
Fidel Castro whips up a furor in Cuba, charging the United States with arming and training mercenary forces for an imminent invasion.
Today, Cuba keeps up its rhetoric. The revolution still lives.
Soy super revolucionario, demasiado.
Today, Fidel's brother, Raúl, is in power. The economy is in shambles. Buildings are falling apart. And the youth is restless for opportunity.
Creo que sí. Que hay esperanza de que todo vaya a cambiar, no sé. Y que todo vaya a mejorar.
I came to Cuba to see it for myself, to gauge whether or not there exist any newly minted counter-revolutionaries, on the ground or online, ready to launch their own revolution.
Cuba es un pueblo reprimido que vive en la oscuridad, pero que algún día, aquí a 20 años, no sé, a 30 años, cuando cambie el sistema que hay aquí, pueda ser un país libre.
Welcome to Miami, home to 1 million Cuban Americans who call themselves exiles. America's foreign policy towards Cuba is largely shaped not in Washington, but here, on the streets of Little Havana.
Libertad! Libertad! Libertad!
Rewind to July 2006. Fidel Castro just resigned, sending the exile community into a frenzy.
We're ecstatic, we're glad, we're joyful, we're happy.
No más dictadura. Este es un asesino peor que el hermano.
Cuba, libre!
The revelry would be short-lived, however, for his brother succeeded him and carried on Castro's brand of communism.
Here we have Cubama.
Jorge Moreno is a Grammy Award-winning Latin rock star. He represents a new wave of young Cuban Americans rethinking their elders' hard-line, right-wing stance, isolating Cuba.
So we're going to go to the famous Domino Park here in Little Havana and talk to some Cubans before we go to Cuba. ¿Qué ustedes creen que va a pasar allá?
El único cambio que puede venir es cuando Raúl Castro se abra de pata cuando Fidel se muera.
Está igual que muerto. Cualquier cosa es mejor que lo que hay ahora en este momento. Ahí no va a haber ningún cambio.
In a few days, Moreno's off to Cuba himself to visit family there. Made possible by President Obama's order in February allowing family unrestricted travel and remittances. Under the Bush policy, family could only visit once every 3 years and send a max of $100 every 3 months. He plans to bring aid, money, and household items for his family, where the average Cuban salary is about $17 a month. Much of America's Cuban policy has been shaped right here at the Cuban American National Foundation, whose leaders, like Director Francisco Hernandez, have the ear of every U.S. president.
And here I am with Obama.
While the organization is traditionally Republican, they felt President Bush missed the opportunity for regime change when Fidel resigned and welcome any proactive policy from President Obama.
They simply remained completely static, and they said, no, we are not going to deal with Castro until they change. Well, they are not going to change.
I don't think there's going to be a dramatic change overnight, even if Raúl were to die tomorrow, or Fidel, or both of them.
Ted Picone is the Latin American fellow at the Brookings Institution and believes the Obama administration can make small inroads to Cuba.
Whether it's around migration or counter-narcotics cooperation, disaster relief, environmental issues, there are a number of things that actually we can do with them that doesn't require lifting the embargo overnight.
The whole world has relations with Cuba. We're the only ones that don't.
Chris Arcos is a lifelong State Department diplomat and former ambassador to Honduras. He says the U.S. has catered to the Cuban-American constituency rather than conducting proper foreign policy and engage Cuba via capitalism.
Let's have more exchange with Cuba. Let's have more trade with Cuba. I don't think that they're going to be just knocked off. I think they're just going to be slowly dissipated. That's the way the model I see. Seduced by the Chinese model.
So here I am, off to Cuba to see if its love affair with Castro continues. The State Department allows journalists to go there, but nearly impossible to get credentialed by the Cubans. So I'll be using the small handycam at times to avoid suspicion. So we're about to board a chartered air flight, Gulfstream Air, take off for La Habana. Well,
ladies and gentlemen, make our final approach into Havana.
welcome to Cuba, Jose Marti Airport. Crazy, we're just 90 miles from home. Heard about this place my whole life. And it was a 15-minute flight, that's it. Here we are. Wow. Immediately upon arrival, I'd learned there are essentially two Cubas, one for tourists and one for its residents. So we just got in from the airport and we had to see El Hotel Nacional. It's Cuba's premier hotel. It's an iconic place to visit, and we go in for a drink. Gorgeous lobby, huge, amazing. I mean, what can I say? It's literally a tropical resort. It's paradise. Must be nice for the tourists. Only until recently were locals even allowed into hotels. It's funny, because how could you tell if one's a Cuban and one's a tourist? My Nikes, my passport, maybe because I can afford the $5 drink. Even more expensive is the whopping $8 for an hour of internet, which Cubans are forbidden from buying. There you see the Cuban flag waving, and the real Cuba be on the rocks here. It's such a contradiction. Cubans are being held hostage by a system where most consumer goods are in CUCs, the international Cuban currency, and pegged to U.S. prices. But they're paid in moneda nacional, Cuba's internal currency, that's 24 times less valuable, making things impossible to afford. It's why at night you find people up and down Havana's waterfront, the Malecón. It's free. People bring their own booze, and these days, makeshift religious gatherings. These are our local Cuban buddies. This is literally partying Cuban style on the street corner. You get a bottle of rum, your non-Coca-Cola, because they're certainly not going to import American Coca-Cola. The funny thing about the ritual rum and Coke mix is while the world calls it a Cuba Libre, meaning a free Cuba, locals dub it una mentirita, meaning a little white lie. Coming up, from afar, Cuba is fascinating, but the deeper you go, the worse it gets. And you find that everyone says the same thing.
No es fácil. Entonces tú dices, no es fácil.
No es fácil.
No es fácil.
Pero no es fácil, la vida cubana no es fácil.
I came to Cuba to see firsthand whether or not there exist any seeds for a homegrown revolution. There seems to be a perfect storm. Popular discontent due to a crumbling economy and a youth with little to no opportunity.
El cubano es el único ser que es feliz con sus propios problemas.
This is the Havana Libre Hotel, the Free Havana. Once a Hilton, today home to tour groups, and at 3 p.m., this happens. Whoa! What just happened?
What they're doing is conserving energy. That's why I'm sweating inside of a hotel lobby.
I snuck out to the roof to get some overhead shots of the city. One of the first things I notice of looking out over Havana is the Plaza de la Revolución, and the tower there looks exactly like the Tower of Juche Idea in Pyongyang, North Korea. I was there in 2005. From here, you can see the capital, the Hotel Nacional, the port, the university. It's where I get a romanticized postcard view of Havana. On the ground, things are different. Cubans have a saying, no es fácil, meaning it's not easy. And here, nothing is.
¿Cómo es vida aquí? Así, ¿cómo es?
Oye, compadre, no me coja para esa vida.
There's free food rations. That's easy, right?
Esto es también precio a precio del Estado.
Need your vegetables? Good luck. It depends on what's in season here at this government stand. Its state boss sure plays it up, though. Down the street, you're lucky to get a monthly meager portion of meat. These days, it's exclusively chicken, no beef, nor fish. Yeah, right. There are plenty of new Chinese buses, though. They don't have AC, so it's a sweatbox. People can pay or ride free. Private taxis were recently licensed, especially expensive ones for tourists. Maquinas, or these 50s American roadsters, are for the locals and cram 4 or 5 people in.
They cost 10 peso moneda nacional, which is their currency, which is a lot cheaper.